Hello, my name is Nancy Young, and welcome to another episode of Your Voice Matters with Nancy Young, a program highlighting the positive voices within our local communities. Now, before we get started, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Today, we'll be highlighting your voice through a book called Grace to Administrate. We have the author here today. Her name is Dr. Cynthia Chess. Dr. Cynthia L is a multi-gifted leader, the pastor and founder of Mountains Hope Community Worship Center, one church, 3 locations in Tracy, Mountain House, and Patterson, California. She is the founder and president of Victory Over Individual Challenges, Inc., also known as The Voice, a community economic educational development corporation designed to propel people into their destinies by providing community outreach resources. Dr. Chess is also a successful entrepreneur who is mandated to develop emerging leaders. As a leading authority on understanding and reaching the next generation, she provides multi-generational leadership training and empowerment seminars for churches, public schools, universities, civic organizations, nonprofits, and corporations throughout the United States. She also uses her entrepreneur expertise and business acumen to cultivate and coach new business owners as they turn their dreams into reality. She holds several degrees, including her doctorate in theology. Dr. Chess resides here in Northern California with the love of her life, Elder Troy, while they're raising their 2 grandchildren. At this time, help me welcome Dr. Cynthia L. Chess. Welcome, Dr. Chess. Before we dive into your book today, tell me about The Voice ministry and how that's impacting our community.
Okay, well, The Voice is Victory Over Individual Challenges. That's what it stands for, VOIC. And we have an all-encompassing program where we help, first of all, children. We have an after-school program for latchkey kids. We also do a summer camp for children. So we have what we call a preventative area, and then we have a redemption area where we go after young people who have maybe dropped out of school and who need some encouragement. Some people who may not be living exactly like they desire or that's necessary for them to live. And we try to help them get on the right track. Some may be entrepreneurs, some may need to finish high school, get their GED or diploma. So go after those. And then thirdly, we are an intervention program with the schools. So we go into the schools, we help those that maybe don't speak English well, or those who may not quite understand what's taking place with the school system, and perhaps their children or their child has been diagnosed with some sort of deficiency.
Okay.
And so we'll go in and we intervene. And so we become a liaison between the school, the family, and the child. And so we put together a program for them. I'm most pleased with this program because we'll put together a program for them that will help the child to succeed. And then we walk them through the stages to do that. So that's pretty much what The Voice. There is another component called DAP, DAPP, and that's for developmentally disabled adults. And we also work with those, and we've developed a program to help those on a regular basis. With this COVID-19, we've not been as involved, but of course, prior to that, we have just been out there in the community and doing whatever we can do to help bring maybe solace and peace and restoration in our community.
Okay, are you doing it in Tracy Unified School District?
We've done it with children in Tracy, as well as in Mountain House. And we've also done it with some in out in Antioch area. We actually started a few years ago with one young lady in Antioch.
Okay. So you get involved kind of like with the IEP program?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's very helpful to have an advocate who understands really what's going on. So to help that young person, that student to understand too, so that they can be successful.
Absolutely.
And I know that you have, just from my bookmark here, I know that you're on The Voice Daily, 5 p.m. on Freedom Radio.
Yes.
See
You
here.
got that. And you know what? That was a tremendous blessing because we actually bought time and we were on once a week. And he said that our numbers had increased so until he wanted to put us on 5 days a week. So we didn't solicit that, they solicited us. That
Well,
was a tremendous blessing. Yeah.
what does it give you the opportunity to do when you're there 5 days a week?
It's active, and I'm not on live. He takes my recordings. So
Okay.
it's sermons that he plays live. And he takes those, we upload them to him, and he takes those and plays a new sermon every day.
Okay. Encouragement. That's important.
Yes.
All right. So now we can dive into this book,
Ah,
Grace to Administrate.
yes.
So I am an avid reader, and I could have read this probably like in a couple of hours and just, but it's kind of like a Thanksgiving meal. You take a long time preparing it. For me, I take days to prepare it. And then people sit down, fix a plate, and within 10 minutes, gobble it all up. I'm like, what? You didn't even savor all that I put into it. So I chose to take my time and really read this. It's taken me about a month to read it because I've just read it, one chapter at a time, just really absorbing the contents.
Good.
And so, I mean, this would take us hours to discuss, but we don't have that kind of time today. So,
Yes.
let's just go ahead and look at some of the things. Today, I actually was listening to a young man talk about manuals. And it was an analogy as far as the manual is written, whether it's for a car or for an appliance or whether a toy or whatever it is, it's written so that you can get the mind of the creator of that thing.
Yes.
So that if anything goes wrong with it, you can know where to go fix it or, troubleshoot. And so you are the author and creator of this book, Grace to Administrate. So I just kind of want to get into your mind, the manual of it all today. So what inspired you to write on this topic?
You know, Nancy, there's so many who operate in gifts, period. But administration is a gift that is not acknowledged much. And so when I began to notice that, I'm a listener and I hear people when they talk about various things, whatever it is. I may not always comment, but I'm always listening. And so I often hear people become frustrated or discouraged or not really having an understanding as why someone has done something a certain way. And so as I've listened over the years, I began to see and understand that most more than not have this gift of administration. And when things don't tend to go their way, they don't quite understand their role in it. So we find murmurers and complainers and people that can't adjust or adapt, or people who expect others to do things their way. Now, being a pastor and writing this from a spiritual perspective, I also understand that this is a secular gifting as well. This is something that many people have. And so I needed to bring clarity, first of all, to the gift so that you understand without becoming frustrated and so forth. And rather than becoming that, you can operate with this with an understanding so that people who have the gift will know how to execute, but then also will understand that those that don't have the gift may need help in operating or bringing anything into fruition. I strongly believe, as you talk about the manual, speaking of a manual, I believe that God has that manual for us, and that those with administrative giftings tap into heaven and we hear from God what his manual, what his plan is in the earth realm. And we're able to then execute his desire in the earth realm. And that's what the gift of administration does, whether it is in secular operations or it's in the church. It is a gift that brings heaven into the earth realm.
Absolutely. I said, how does this gift transcend to the spiritual as well as the natural?
Okay, very good. And it's simply one of the things that I've discovered is that as a spiritual gift, we are in tune. The gifts are given by the Spirit of God. So by the Spirit of God searches the deep things of God and reveals it unto us. So the Spirit of God gives us revelation and understanding. So whether or not I'm operating in the church or operating in the workplace, if I have the Spirit of God, I can still execute in this gift. Now, what we do have to understand is that there's some administrators who may not have a relationship with God, but they still have administration. And they can do that and go so far. But that with the gift, one with the gift, operate and go, we can go into things more in depth. We can see the whole picture. So it's not just about doing tasks and making things happen, but it's seeing the end from the beginning as God did when He created us, seeing the end from the beginning and then working to make that end become a reality.
Right, and it can be frustrating to be able to see that end, and you're trying to talk to people about all these steps how to get there, and they don't
Right.
even realize that there is in view already. So it,
Absolutely.
it's quite interesting. In your book near the end, you talk about your granddaughter and
Yeah.
how you recognize the gift of administration in her.
Oh,
And a
yeah.
lot of times, it's we can see things in ourselves, or we can from ourselves in our children or in our grandchildren. And sometimes it's the challenging parts that we can identify with much more quickly. And
Yeah.
we're trying to help them to overcome whatever that challenge is. And so
Yeah.
you recognize that in her, so you're able to be a mentor to her.
Yes.
And so I see
Absolutely.
some of the examples you gave, even with making up her bed, and she had to draw out a diagram, very specific of how she wanted the
Absolutely.
clothes. And when you describe the clothes in the closet and by category and by color, I'm like, okay, that's exactly how I do it. But so it's quite interesting. But being able to be that mentor for
Yes.
her, which I'm sure is critical. And you're getting to raise your granddaughter as well.
Absolutely. I'm raising my granddaughter, who is now 12. She'll be 13 in August, along with my grandson, who is 9 years old. Their mom passed about almost 5 years ago. And so I have, my husband and I have guardianship of the two of them. So we are raising them, and they're totally different. She's going to be a lawyer. He's going to be an engineer. They've already determined this. Um, but she certainly has this gift of administration, and I see myself a lot in her. I'm very observant, even of myself. So I know that I had been critical, and I've learned through life how not to be so critical and judgmental of situations and of people. And I've learned this because I recognize now that I have this gift of administration, but I've learned how to temper it and to walk with understanding. And that's what I had her to do. Instead of, she was livid when she came home from school and said, "Who changed my bed?" I mean, I took it lightly in the book, but who? And she was, "Hey, put this in the wrong place and that." Okay, honey, let's sit down. Let's talk about this. And so I was able to walk her through that process of thinking things through without becoming aggravated and agitated, but to be able to think it through and understand not everyone thinks like us. I really think that that's a huge point that we bring out in the book. Not everybody thinks like we think. And
Absolutely.
we have to be careful that we don't create many me's. And a lot of times people are looking for everyone to do it like I do it. And so I think that it's a teachable moment, it's a training moment. And so with her, that's what I've learned to do. Use those as teachable and training moments.
Right. That is critical, very important. And the judgmental things just come in because you feel like people aren't doing it right. They're not doing it like you would have done it, or they're not making the
Yeah,
same sacrifices that you would have made. Uh,
absolutely.
yeah. So for you,
Absolutely.
did you have someone that recognized that gift in you early on, or did you have to discover it yourself?
Oh, I discovered it myself. Just the Holy Spirit, literally, because I didn't know what it was. I had absolutely no idea. This was something about me since when we were children. We had beautiful neighborhood where all the kids in the neighborhood played together. We played outside, either at my house or someone else's house. But we'd often have during the summer, we'd do plays in our backyard. We would have mock weddings in our backyard. We'd have talent shows. So I was always putting something together, even as a child, but not really still recognizing the gift because gifts weren't taught when I was a child. In my as we grew up, it wasn't taught. Even as we got older and being in church, being brought up in church, backslid, but came back, the gifts still weren't really taught. Then after they were taught, they focused on most of the gifts in Romans 12 or in 1 Corinthians 12, and not really focused much on any of the others, and the gift of administration being one. So they focus on some of the primary gifts that we often think about and talk about and hear about.
Right.
The gift of administration is one, again, that has really gone unnoticed. And I began to recognize it in myself. Just the Spirit of God began to show me what I had and what I did. And it was something interesting early on in ministry because I'm a not necessarily a perfectionist, but I like things to be done in excellence. And I kind of talk about that in the book.
Right.
So I'm not a perfectionist, because perfectionist carries a different connotation. But I do like things done with excellence. And Daniel had a spirit of excellence. And so early in ministry, I'm always putting things together. When you first start pastoring, you do pretty much all of it. And then God sends you people and they begin to help. And so I remember one year, probably our second year, and we were doing something. I don't know if it was dinner or something. And maybe it was our third year, but my administrative assistant at that time, she picked me up. She said, "Okay, Pastor, I'm going to take you." She said, "So when we get there, Pastor, please accept the way they've done things. They've worked so hard to accomplish it. Please don't go in changing things around." And that's when I realized that I have gone overboard with my gift. So I would go in and I would do it gently. I wouldn't blow up or anything. I would go, "Oh well, why is that table over? Would it be better if the table were, you know?" She said, "Pastor, will you just accept it?" So I began to realize I need to think about this.
It's kind of like having a potluck and you're going to look like, why are the plates over there? And why is
Absolutely.
the meat right here in the,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I noticed that a lot about myself, just
Uh-huh.
wherever I am. I mean, I can go into any organization and shift it. I had my own bookkeeping service for 25 years. And so I built accounting, the accounting departments. I would go into companies that had not really had much established. So I would literally build their accounting department and then hire personnel to come in. And I would step back and just oversee it for a couple of months up to a year. So I know what things are supposed to look like. I know structure. I know order. I know how the flow of things are to happen. And so I can go into any organization, a doctor's office, anything, and I can know that something's out of order. I can see character. It's just automatic. I know who should be doing what and who should be in certain places in a certain area. And that's just the gifting. But I've learned that. Again, no one ever taught me that. I don't even think people really know much about the gift of administration, which is really what I desired to do, was to shed some light on it. And I would hear when people complain, it irritates me when people complain, because you have people who become spectators of worship teams because the worship team doesn't worship like they think they should worship. They
Right.
don't sing the song like they think. They can't accept what's taking place. And instead of rejoicing and getting into worship with everyone else, they now become a spectator. Well, that one got off note and they weren't singing it. They could have all had on the same. And it's just the criticism that I'm saying, okay, let's stop. Let's step back and let's take a look at who we are as people with administration, and let's choose our battles. We don't have to critique everybody's everything. Let's choose our battles.
Yeah, that's so stressful. One of the things that I noticed in the book, you mentioned in different ways several times as far as being solution oriented. First,
Yeah.
two of the things that I picked out were the piggybacks and the murmurers and complainers.
Absolutely. You know, you think about it. I've been in corporate for many years, and accounting managers for attorneys and so forth. But in that business, we sit in meetings. We have corporate meetings, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with these, but you can get one person after another that says, "I just want to piggyback on," and there's no solution. We heard that already.
Right.
Okay, two people stated that 5 times. You don't have to say what they've said. Can we just get a resolution here? And I'm real strong on that. And I believe Jesus was solution oriented, and so must we be.
Absolutely. And that's how I felt even with the way that, our government is ran. You know,
Yes,
we can point out problems all day long, but what's the solution? What are the options that we
absolutely,
have to make positive
absolutely.
changes?
We need people that are saying, okay, we can identify a problem, and that's good because we need to identify that there is a problem. We need to acknowledge it
Right.
because you cannot change anything that you don't acknowledge. So let's acknowledge that there is a problem. Now, how do we resolve it? How do we resolve what our situation or our issue is? And we need people in local governments, in higher governments. We need people in position that can think things through, even to bring a team together and say, okay, let's brainstorm. How can we make this happen? Let's get to solutions. And
Right.
then we got an outcome. An outcome is great. How do we get there?
Alignment. I was thinking about this analogy actually because of one of the quotes on the back of your book
Okay.
by Apostle Dr. Michael Broughton. And
Okay.
so I typed this so I don't forget. It says, "This book by Dr. Chess pulls out of us wrong thinking, pours into us right alignment, and puts us into defined roles of kingdom advancement that lets the body take territory without taking casualties along the way." And so alignment, recently I got an alignment for my son's car, and and he had got some new tires on it.
Okay.
And the gentleman who sold the tires, he said, it doesn't really matter how expensive you get for tires. You can spend a lot of money on them if you want to, but if you don't get this alignment done, it's going to wear them out quickly. And
Yes.
so that's just the same thing with life. You can get education, you can have gifts, you can have talents, but if your alignment is off, just that little bit curved to the right or to the left,
Right.
it messes up everything. It wears you out. And so I picked out a couple of things that I thought maybe would be, getting things back in alignment. And that's one of the things that you mentioned is lack of grace. Because if you have lack of grace, then you're annoyed. And
Yes.
so, and I also put lack of understanding. You did a whole section on that, but it has to do with not using wisdom, and
Yeah.
that because that definitely goes into leaving casualties behind.
Absolutely.
Is there anything that you want to say about that, the whole alignment kind of thing, and your
Yeah.
perspective?
Yeah. I think that's good, and I'm glad that you brought that up because right alignment is very important. When we talk about even taking casualties, I believe it or not, I could I could cut. There was a time that I could really cut people up, and I could cut you up nicely, but I can cut you up. And when I realized how I was hurting people, and this was even before ministry and starting pastoring, but I realized I had that in me. But I could do it, I was very nice about the way I did it, but I would still hurt and wound people. So when we now talk about this and aligning ourselves with the right persons, and making sure that our character is in alignment with even our calling. That we have to understand people, when people make mistakes, a lot of times they already feel bad about it. And so we have to be careful not to beat people up because they have made a mistake. Even Apostle Paul talks about that. He says, when one has, in essence, messed up or has sinned, he says you have to be very, very careful that you do not continue to remind them of that. You forgive them and show them that grace, or they might be overcome with that sin or overcome with that grief. And I think that we have a tendency to do that. we don't operate in grace. We can always tell people when something's wrong, but we have to know how to tell them what's wrong. Now, I do realize there's so many people wounded in the body of Christ. Sometimes you can use as much grace as you want to, Nancy, and they'll still be wounded again. And that's just the truth. But it cannot be on our part where we are wounding people even more. It cannot be our intent. So we have to be careful how we speak. We have to be understanding. Understanding brings us into alignment. That grace, being able to communicate. Apostle Paul said, I speak the truth in love and lie not. So we've got to be able to speak the truth in love. And that's alignment.
You talked about 3 different types of thinkers. And so I wanted to just talk about that a little bit today because it's important understanding yourself. And one of the things that you say is being able to understand yourself and others and not only lead, but function, to be able to function in life.
I think it's easy when we can understand people. It helps us deal with people right where they are and not have an expectation again of people being like us. And this was birthed out of my working with the young lady. I worked with someone who was losing her place. And so I went to court and worked things out with the attorney. But prior to that, I had given her steps to take. And I assumed that she had taken those steps. And I found out that she had not. And then I said again, okay, well, I need you to do this. And here's the paperwork. Go get. And I assumed that it was done, and it was not. And then I realized that I needed to say, come, sit down, and I'm going to walk you through doing it. And so this was literally birthed out of that. The Lord began to show me that you have people that you can say, okay, I need you to, and I use this analogy, clean your room. And so they'll automatically know, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to clean under the bed, I'm going to dust, I'm going to vacuum, make sure the closet's in order. It's a done deal. You don't have to say another thing to them. Then you have the one that you said, okay, I need you to go clean your room. So here's the list of things that you're going to do when you clean your room: dust, vacuum, clean out the closet, under the bed, bathroom, all this when you do it. And then you have those that you'll have to say, well, I need you to clean your room. You're going to dust, you're going to vacuum, you're going to clean under the bed, you're going to clean out the closet. Now come, let me show you how it's done. And so there's some that we just must understand. We are going to have to walk them through situations, and we need to be okay with that. Not everyone gets it like we do. Some of us don't have to be told a second time. Some of us, it's like, okay, this needs to be done. I can strategize myself. I know how to make it happen. But not everybody can do that. And even those that can maybe are not always able to execute. And so we have to walk them through execution.
Right. With that, I learned a bit about micromanaging because I'm that first category person. So to micromanage me is frustrating because just give me the top line. I'll figure it out. We got it together. And if I have a question, I'll come and ask you. But you can't treat everybody the same like that because some people need that point by point. And I learned with my children, he had ADD.
Okay.
And for him, not only did you have to show him how and give him a list, but you had to break it up in points. And then he would wait until you told him it was okay to go to the next section.
Yes.
So I wanted to just click that auto button to just say, this, you can do the next thing. You don't have to wait and ask me. Just do the next thing and just do the next thing after that. So,
right. But he needed that. He needed that assurance to know it's okay now. You can go to the next place.
So lastly, the last action step in your book, I'll skip down to that. Actually, no, I do want to mention the one right before that, the life of administrator, because you did mention that is one first and foremost of prayer.
Yes.
And so I know why you said in the book, but in your words, why would you say that's foundational for the life of an administrator?
Well, we have to recognize, first of all, when we start at the beginning of the book, it talks about how we're the pilots or the director, and we have a destination and we have goals. And so what we have to realize is that first and foremost, we are getting our orders from on high. And so if Jesus is the chief pilot and we are executing here in the earth realm, we need to know what his plan is. And there's sometimes that casualties can be taken, and if we don't operate in the right manner, meaning if we don't, I talk about Sullenberger, Captain Sully Sullenberger, and landing the aircraft, the plane on the Hudson River. And that was out of the box thinking. As administrators, many times we have to think out of the box. There's no cookie cutter plan and no cookie cutter way. Now, as a secular administrator, we may do things in a cookie cutter manner. But when it comes to releasing the will of God from heaven into the earth realm, there is no cookie cutter manner. We have to realize that I must stay in connection with my captain. I need to get orders. I need to get direction. I need to know if there's any turbulence ahead. I need to know what I am faced with. And so when I stay in connection, this is why prayer is so important in life, period. I must always be in connection with my captain.
So lastly, before this question, just a comment really, because for me, realizing that I had the gift of administration, that was something that I had to come about myself and understanding. And
Yes.
so I didn't know why I can go into different places and see processes that were out of place and just set things in order. And
Yes.
so it was probably in the last 4 or 5 years that I realized that. So I think that this book is very timely and imperative for people to be able to recognize, but not only recognize what they possess, but
Right.
how to wisely carry that and
Yes.
function within that gift. And
Yes.
so one of the last action step that you actually wrote says, remember, sometimes the only thing that we can change about a situation is our attitude. And sometimes that's all it takes.
Right.
And so I just wanted you just end with that. And how can that statement right there really make the difference in life for anyone?
That is very good because our attitude is developed by how we perceive things. So we have to change our perception. And I believe strongly that this is what the book talks about, changing your perception.
Right.
Uh, not expecting things to always be done a certain way, and be amenable, be okay with it, be pliable, learn how to shift with the times, learn how to shift with the changes like you're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
These things, first of all, for you to have, I applaud you for doing your mayoral kickoff virtually. So I really applaud you. You have to shift with the times. Well, I guess I'm just not going to do anything. No, you could have very well have gone that direction, but you listen to the Spirit of God, and you listen to those with a voice that would say, no, you go ahead, you do this. So we have to learn how to shift. Because just because you can't do things the same way doesn't mean it's an end. And that's what I think that in totality, this is what it means. Change the way we think, change the way we perceive things, and be amenable and pliable in various situations. You got to learn how to change. You got to learn how to go with wherever the wind is going. We got to learn how to go. I'm not saying be unstable, but you have to know when to shift and when to move. And we make the best. I say this in the book. Administrators make the best out of every situation. We know how to do it.
Absolutely. Sometimes I feel like the matrix having to go on, but you just do what you got to do.
You do what you got to do, and you get it done. I applaud you, and I appreciate you, and I'm grateful for the call and the anointing on your life. And you know how to get things done. And you're an out of the box thinker. And there's just a great call upon your life to be able to release that which needs to be released in this season, in the city of Tracy and in the world. I really believe it. And God is going to use you greatly in the days to come. So I really bless you, Nancy. It's a pleasure to know you, and it's a great pleasure to have an opportunity to share with you.
Well, thank you. Again, thank you to Dr. Cynthia Chess for joining us today on another episode of Your Voice Matters with Nancy Young. Truly, you are making a profound difference within our community. Now, if you enjoyed this programming, please hit the like and subscribe button. If you'd like more information on how to get in touch with Dr. Chess, or you would like to have information on how to obtain your own copy of Grace to Administrate, please see the information below. Thank you again, and until next time, remember, your voice matters. If you have something positive to share and you would like your voice to be highlighted on Your Voice Matters with Nancy Young, please contact me at yvmwithnancy@gmail.com. And if you've enjoyed this programming, please hit the subscribe button right now. Thank you.